L versus Light Yagami. One is a straight-A prodigy who finds a notebook that can kill anyone whose name is written in it. The other is the world's greatest detective, a gremlin-looking genius who lives off desserts and sugar and sleeps around 3 hours a week. Together, they create one of the greatest rivalries in fiction. A rivalry built entirely on pure intellect. Light Yagami begins as the perfect student, brilliant and disciplined, and yet bored out of his mind. When he discovers the Death Note, he decides to use it to cleanse the world of criminals. Within days, he becomes Kira, judge, jury, executioner, and self-appointed god, reshaping the world in his image. When criminals begin dropping like flies, the UN calls in L, or rather, L calls himself in. He is a barefoot, hunched-over genius with 0% social skills. He takes one look at the Kira killings, and with one simple trick, he immediately deduces that Kira lives in Japan. He's young and educated. Oh, and he can apparently kill without physical contact. From that moment, Light and L enters a psychological deathmatch. Two geniuses trying to expose the other without giving themselves away. L suspects Light almost immediately, and Light figures out that L suspects him instantly. The brilliance of this rivalry is that neither can get the killing blow. So, they trap each other inside a friendship. They go to school together, they eat cake together, they play tennis together, while trying to read each other's minds. Light is even brought into the investigation, so that L can keep an eye on him. They sit inches apart, both smiling, both plotting the other's end. They are complete opposites, yet disturbingly alike. Both believe they are justice. Both are hypocrites. L breaks human rights laws and lies constantly in order to catch Kira, while Kira preaches an end to all criminals while gleefully murdering innocents. Eventually, Light cheats and manipulates one of the gods of death to win. And L faced death, now knowing that he was right all along, with Light grinning down on his face. When L dies, the heart of the series dies with him. They brought in some Temu replacements, but in my humble opinion, it was never the same after that. Borden versus Angier. Set in the smoky theaters of Victorian London, the prestige follows two magicians, Alfred Borden and Robert Angier, locked in a rivalry that consumes their lives and corrodes their very humanity. Borden is a working-class prodigy, a man who understands that real magic is built on pain and sacrifice. Angier, on the other hand, is everything Borden is not, elegant and charismatic, but he lacks the one thing Borden has, resolve. They begin as partners, but when a stage illusion goes horribly wrong and Angier's wife drowns in a water tank, their bond shatters. Blame turns into obsession, and soon their rivalry spirals into a brutal game of one-upmanship, where every performance becomes a battlefield and every new trick is a weapon. The rivalry centers around one illusion, the transported man. To the audience, and to Angier, Borden's trick is flawless. Borden can seemingly teleport himself to the other side of the stage instantly, and Angier becomes obsessed with uncovering its secret. The truth is as simple as it is brutal. The secret to the trick is a twin. Two brothers living a single life, sharing one name, one love, one identity, sacrificing wholeness for perfection. But Angier doesn't want to understand the trick. He just wants to beat it. Desperate to compete, he turns to Nikola Tesla, who builds him a machine that creates perfect duplicates of Angier. Every night, one Angier reappears to thunderous applause, and another sinks into a water tank underneath the stage, drowning in the dark. He never knows which one he will be. He only knows that the show must go on. Angier uses this to fake his own death and frames Borden for the crime. And in the end, none of them wins. One of the Bordens is hanged for the crime, while the other shoots Angier. And so, one of the Bordens walks away, but only half of himself remains alive. Goku versus Vegeta. One was born a prince, heir to the Saiyan throne, a first-class warrior and immensely powerful since birth. The other is a third-class nobody sent to Earth as a baby to conquer the planet, only to hit his head so hard that all the murderous instincts were replaced with kindness, and together They absolutely dominated your Sunday morning cartoon schedule. When Vegeta first arrives, he's a cold-blooded, ego-driven killer who casually murders Nappa, one of the only surviving Saiyans, simply because he lost. I mean, Vegeta is a total piece of shit, determined to obtain immortality at any cost. But Goku stands in his way as this annoyingly cheerful martial arts goofball who somehow keeps getting stronger. Their first fight is one of the most iconic in the entire series, and it's brutal. Royalty versus Reject. And they destroy each other to the point where neither can barely move, and in the end, Goku spares Vegeta's life. A very Goku move that incidentally creates one of the most iconic rivalries in anime, and mainly fueled by Vegeta's great character development. Because when Vegeta leaves Earth, we finally see his real motivation for obtaining immortality. Avenging the Saiyan race against the terrifyingly flamboyant Frieza. During the Namek Saga, Vegeta cooks the entire Frieza force, only to die at Frieza's hands, begging Goku to avenge their people. It's the moment he shifts from a one-dimensional villain to one of the best characters in Dragon Ball. And thus, the cycle begins. Goku beats Frieza, Vegeta gets furious, and he grinds his way to surpass Goku. Goku reaches a new form, and Vegeta gets furious again and grinds his way to the next one. Vegeta surpasses Goku, and then Goku just breaks the ceiling again. And on it goes. They follow each other through all the Super Saiyan transformations, and the pair goes from mortal enemies to frenemies, to something dangerously close to brothers. Two Saiyans, one lifelong competition, trying to outdo each other until the universe breaks. Ash Ketchum versus Gary Oak. In the original Pokémon, Ash and Gary's rivalry was iconic. They grow up in the same town with the same dream, becoming a Pokémon master, but from the start, Gary Oak is ahead, and he never lets Ash forget it. He leaves on his journey with a fan club, a sports car, and total confidence. On the other hand, Ash oversleeps, and all the cool starter Pokémons are taken, and he gets stuck with a fat yellow rat. Gary mocks Ash constantly. He refuses to battle him and treats him like a joke, not a rival. Ash, meanwhile, measures everything against Gary. His badges and number of catches. Gary got cool Pokémons like Nidoking, Arcanine, and Blastoise, all fully evolved. Ash's Pokémon either refuses to evolve or straight up leaves him. And when he's got actual cool Pokémon, they refuse his orders. Even when Ash catches the same Pokémon as Gary, Gary's are bigger. There are some turning points in the relationship though. Gary gets crushed at the Viridian Gym by Giovanni's Mewtwo, while Ash gets the badge, without meeting the OP Pokémon though. At the Pokémon League, Gary loses early. Ash goes further, and then the original series ends. And then you realize something.
Wait a minute!
In the entire original series, they never battle once. For a rivalry that defined my childhood, that's honestly pretty disappointing. I remembered them battling at the Pokémon League. But no. In fact, it takes over 100 episodes before they even fight, well into the second series. And when they finally do, it's a brief and tame Pikachu versus Eevee match that Gary wins. Ash eventually wins against Gary in the Johto League. And then Gary retires and becomes a researcher, and that's it. Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed is the heavyweight champion of the world. He is flashy and undefeated. A man who treated boxing like theater and himself like the main attraction. And when he picked a random club fighter from Philadelphia for a publicity stunt, he expected a show he didn't have to train for. But Rocky Balboa trains like it's his only chance to matter. Rocky had no business sharing a ring with Apollo Creed. He was a nobody, a debt collector, a man whose only real assets were a granite chin and an iron will. But the moment Apollo knocked him down and Rocky stood back up, the dynamic changed forever. Rocky goes the distance with the world champion, who keeps his title but is shaken to his core. The champ was nearly defeated by a random guy, and that humiliation becomes the fuel for their rivalry. After the fight, Apollo receives hate mail from fans, claiming he fixed the match. So Apollo goads Rocky into a rematch, Desperate to prove that the first fight was a fluke, he trains obsessively. Rocky agrees to a rematch, even though threatened by blindness. When they fight again, Apollo dominates the ring, but Rocky refuses to quit, and as both men collapse, Apollo can't rise in time and Rocky becomes champion. Apollo loses the belt, but he regains respect. By the third film, the rivalry has transformed. Rocky has grown soft, and he loses his title to Mr. T. Apollo steps in, now as a mentor instead of a rival. He rebuilds Rocky, sharpens him, and pushes him back to become the fighter he used to be. After Rocky reclaims the title, the two share a final match in a closed gym. There is no cameras and no audience. We never see who wins, because this fight is just for them. Then Apollo steps into the ring against Ivan Drago, and he dies in Rocky's arms. Rocky carries that loss with him, avenges Apollo, and years later, trains Apollo's son, Adonis Creed. Pretty wholesome, huh? Sherlock Holmes versus Moriarty. Sherlock Holmes is the great detective. He is all logic and detachment, a man who sees the world in patterns. To him, solving crimes is yet another puzzle to complete. But there is one man who rivals Sherlock. Professor James Moriarty, the Napoleon of crime, a man as brilliant as Holmes, but without conscience or restraint. If Sherlock brings structure to chaos, Moriarty brings chaos to structure. He is Sherlock's equal and opposite, a dark reflection. Where Sherlock solves crimes, Moriarty orchestrates them. Their rivalry is a meeting of minds so profound, it pushes both men to the edge. They duel with intellect. Every move is countered, and every plan anticipates another. And for once, Sherlock isn't sure he'll win. That's what made their final confrontation in the final problem so great. The author Arthur Conan Doyle, tired of his creation, killed off Sherlock Holmes at Reichenbach Falls, locked him in a fatal struggle with Moriarty, a fistfight ending with both men tumbling to their deaths. But the public reaction was instant and furious. Mourning bands were worn and letters flooded in. And so, Doyle budged under the pressure, and Sherlock Holmes returned, but Moriarty sadly stayed in the waterfall. Tom versus Jerry. One is a cat, the other is a mouse. What more is there to say? In the colorful world of classic animation, few rivalries shine as brightly as Tom and Jerry's. It's the oldest rivalry on this list. Your grandfather watched it in the 1940s, and you're still watching it to this day. This cat and mouse duo delivers endless laughs through their chaotic, high-energy chases. Tom, the scheming house cat with a knack for elaborate traps, is forever hot on the heels of Jerry, the quick-witted mouse who always seems one step ahead. From collapsing pianos to exploding firecrackers, their antics turn every household into a battlefield. Yet, beneath the flying anvils, there's a surprising warmth to their bond. Tom and Jerry are often frenemies, sharing fleeting moments of camaraderie that make their rivalry feel like a playful game. When the world turns against them, when a bigger threat enters the scene, they fight side by side. They share food, they mourn together, and sometimes they save each other's lives. Their dynamic thrives on clever gags and timeless slapstick humor, proving you don't need words to tell a great story. Their rivalry is less about winning and more about the joy of the chase, a lighthearted dance that's kept audiences giggling for decades. Mr. Bean versus the Blue Car. In Mr. Bean, there is a rivalry so one-sided, it barely qualifies as a rivalry. Mr. Bean repeatedly encounters the same innocent blue Reliant Regal, and every time, something terrible happens to it. He nudges it out of parking spaces so it gets ticketed, and he flips it completely, just to avoid paying for parking. The driver is seemingly polite. At one point, Mr. Bean tries to hitchhike, and the blue car offers Bean a lift. But Mr. Bean ignores him, because the car is ugly. Okay, obviously this last entry isn't meant to be taken too seriously, but it raises a fun question. What exactly counts as a rivalry? Does a rivalry require mutual awareness, equality in power, a shared goal, or obsession? Is Batman and Joker a philosophic rivalry, or just a hero and his archenemy? What about Guts and Griffith, or Superman and Lex Luthor? Is there a meaningful difference between rivals and arch-nemeses, or am I just overthinking this? Let me know in the comments what you think, and as always, thanks for watching. Cheers.